Estefania Samira Bonham was born in April 2009 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She was the eldest of 3 daughters born to Pablo Bonham and Fiamma Jessica Gardina. Estefania's mother, Fiamma, belonged to the Romani community settled in the town of San Jose Marmol, south of the nation's capital. Pablo and Fiamma met as teenagers, and although Pablo was not part of the Romani group, they fell in love and started dating. Shortly after, they discovered that Fiamma was pregnant, and with the support of Fiamma's family, they decided to settle down as a couple, moving in with her relatives. Estefania grew up with her parents and 2 younger sisters, always surrounded by family, particularly her grandmother, Maria Isabel Carrizo, with whom she shared a very special bond. Pablo worked hard every day to provide for his family. From Monday to Friday, he worked as a construction worker, and on weekends he sold goods at a street fair. Despite leading a simple life, the family faced the challenges of daily life with optimism and perseverance. According to her parents, Estefania was a sweet, tender, and studious girl. She was so dedicated to her studies that even on rainy days she would insist on going to school. As a child, she dreamed of becoming a nurse but later expressed a desire to be a teacher, inspired by her paternal grandfather. She had a deep love for flamenco and often dressed in traditional Romani attire, proudly honoring her mother's heritage. Pablo enjoyed dressing her in elegant, flashy outfits and taking her to different gatherings, always with her parents by her side. At just 9 years old, Estefania was not only a good student, but also helped out around the house during her free time. On weekends, she would accompany her father to the market to assist him in selling pillows and other items. In later interviews, Fiamma mentioned that Estefania followed a regular routine. After school, she would go straight home to do her homework, and afterward, she would prepare a snack for her grandfather before playing with her sisters or neighborhood friends. Many of her playmates were family members from her mother's side, including her cousin Patricia, granddaughter of Fiamma's uncle, Alberto Jovanovic. Unlike Estefania's parents and grandparents, the Jovanovic family enjoyed a strong financial position, thanks to Alberto's successful business, which included ownership of several properties, a warehouse, and a fleet of refrigerated cargo trucks. Although the 2 families generally had a good relationship and lived quite close to each other, some sources suggest that there were occasional tensions between them, though the reasons remain unclear. Despite this, the children remained unaffected by these issues and frequently played together, sharing their experiences and enjoying each other's company. This brings us to Thursday, October 25th, 2018, an important day for the family as they were celebrating Fiamma's 25th birthday. Despite their financial limitations, Pablo and other relatives gathered to congratulate her and offer their best wishes. While the adults socialized inside the house, Estefania, aged 9, Patricia, aged 11, and their cousins went outside to play hide and seek. According to footage from neighborhood surveillance cameras, it was just after 8:30 p.m. when Patricia's older brother arrived to pick her up. That brother was Christian Alejandro Jovanovic, who was 15 years old at the time. Known by everyone as Miguel, Alberto's grandson and cousin to Fiamma and her daughters, he was born on August 13, 2003, in the Argentine capital. Although little is known about his early childhood, it became evident that after his parents' separation, Miguel's behavior began to spiral out of control. Some local residents reported that he dropped out of school and spent his days loitering around the neighborhood, often bothering younger children. He also started using various illicit substances and became involved in petty crimes, despite not facing financial hardship. Miguel's descent into criminal behavior escalated as he became involved in robberies, and his actions grew increasingly alarming. His mother, unable to cope with his violent tendencies, found it impossible to control him. Reports even suggest that he became physically aggressive toward her, further deepening the strain on their relationship. Despite attempts by his family to intervene, Miguel's behavior continued to deteriorate, creating a ripple of concern throughout the community. It was then that his grandparents intervened and assumed responsibility for his upbringing, hoping to guide him back on the right path. Despite their efforts, nothing they did seemed to be effective. According to testimonies from some acquaintances, Miguel continued to get into trouble, and his behavior remained problematic. Miguel had a complaint for an alleged sexual assault. He was also accused of assaulting a girl to the point of rendering her unconscious and of beating another girl who tried to stop him from stealing a neighbor's television. Most agree that Miguel's mother and grandparents treated his misdeeds as mere pranks or mischief, which only emboldened him to further intimidate and attack others. He bullied and assaulted children in the neighborhood, and some reports suggest that he used bladed weapons to threaten others. Despite numerous police records documenting his violent behavior, the teenager was never formally arrested. Instead, he was hospitalized multiple times at various rehabilitation centers to address his addictions and behavioral issues. His most recent stay was just a few months before Fiamma's birthday, when he was placed in a juvenile farm. However, he managed to escape and revert to his old ways. At that point, there was no one who could contain him. With this background in mind, let's return to the night of October 25th, 2018. On that evening, Mijel arrived at the Bonham family's house to pick up his sister. There, he encountered the group of children who were playing in the street. He then began directing each child on where to hide and asked Estefania to accompany him, claiming he was going to give a gift to Fiamma, excited about the possibility of surprising her mother for her birthday and trusting Mijel because he was her cousin. Estefania climbed into the refrigerated truck driven by Mijel. From that moment on, she was never seen again. What should have been a day of celebration and joy abruptly turned into a desperate search with a tragic outcome. According to some accounts provided by Estefania's family, less than half an hour later, Patricia went into the house to inquire about her cousin. She was told that her daughter was outside playing with the other children. Patricia then informed them that Estefania had left with Mijel and had not returned. Immediately, everyone began searching for Estefania, but she was nowhere to be found. Mijel, upon arriving back at the house, joined the search and even attempted to calm Fiamma by putting an arm around her shoulders and reassuring her that Estefania was probably just hiding and would be found soon. However, as time passed, Fiamma's desperation grew. Eventually, she decided to go to the police station to report her daughter missing, while her husband Pablo stayed behind and neighbors who continued to search the neighborhood. While Fiamma was at the police station, a terrible discovery was unfolding. Around 10 o'clock at night, some young people riding their bicycles noticed a suspicious lump on the pavement. When they approached it, they were horrified to discover that it was the body of a little girl. A little girl who was half naked, covered with a sheet, and with a nylon bag over her head. In the terrible condition of the body, it was evident that the child was lifeless, prompting the young people to immediately contact the authorities. At the police station, Fiamma was anxiously awaiting news of her daughter. Even though she heard that a child had been found, she did not believe it could be related to them. Fiamma asked her husband to go to the scene to confirm the identity of the child, fearing that her heart might not withstand the confirmation of what many had already suspected. Unfortunately, when Pablo arrived and recognized his daughter's body, the devastating news spread rapidly among the neighbors. Shocked and heartbroken, the community gathered at the scene. The locals, enraged, demanded justice from the authorities. Amidst the grief, Fiamma, overwhelmed by the loss, called for severe punishment for the perpetrator and collapsed before the media cameras covering the tragic event. While Estefania's body was taken to the morgue for forensic examinations, the community held a vigil, lighting candles and offering prayers for the young girl. Police officers interviewed the child's loved ones and witnesses and began collecting recordings from security cameras in the area to determine Estefania's final movements. The authorities conducted a chronological reconstruction of the events from the moment Estefania was playing in the street until her body was found, and what they discovered was shocking. A neighbor's camera captured Estefania and other children playing in the street at 8:37 p.m. Minutes later, at 8:45 p.m., Mijel arrived at the scene. At that time, he is seen leaving with Estefania following him. According to the investigation, Mijel took Estefania to a family shed located about 200 meters away. It is presumed that he forced her to go up to the second floor of the structure, where he attempted to sexually assault her, but Estefania resisted fiercely. In response to her resistance, Mijel brutally beat her in the face and then attacked her repeatedly with a knife. It was determined that around 8:55 p.m. that night, he dragged her to the parking lot of the shed and placed her body in a refrigerated truck belonging to his grandfather's company. At 9:33 p.m., a camera recorded him throwing Estefania's body from the same vehicle. This was also witnessed by an observer. Later, another surveillance device captured Mijel returning to the shed at approximately 9:16 p.m. It is believed that at this time, he cleaned the truck and the scene. 7 minutes later, he was recorded returning to the location from where he had taken Estefania. As we know, at that time he approached his cousin Fiamma to console her and was later seen walking alone to the house he shared with his grandparents, mother, and other relatives. These and other clues led to the issuance of several search warrants for the Jovanovic family home, the shed where he had entered with the girl, and the refrigerated truck. In the early morning of Friday, October 26th, the police finally arrested Mijel. They seized a pair of blue pants, a jacket, and underwear with blood traces. In the shed and at the back of the truck, experts found blood samples. Additionally, in a house under construction next to the warehouse, more stained clothing and a sharp object used to end Estefania's life were discovered. During the interrogation, what truly shocked the detectives was the extreme coldness with which the 15-year-old confessed to the crime. He told the officers that he wanted to do something bad that day and felt the urge to end someone's life. It was unclear whether he went to his cousin's house with these intentions or if he found the girl helpless in the street and saw an opportunity to attack her, exploiting the trust associated with their family bond. Initially, both the Argentine press and social networks speculated that the crime was motivated by a supposed revenge or a settling of scores. However, none of these theories were confirmed by the authorities. Instead, family and neighbors suggested that Mijel had mental health issues and might have been using narcotics that influenced his behavior. Complaint of sexual assault against. Initially, some speculated that the crime was driven by a supposed revenge against the young man or by settling scores involving illicit activities of the families. But none of these theories were confirmed by the authorities. Family members and neighbors rejected these versions and suggested that Mijel had mental health issues and was using narcotics that affected his behavior. They also noted that, although Mijel had never been imprisoned before, he had a history of problematic behavior. Although the forensic report of Estefania's body was not officially released, some details were leaked to the press and shared by the family. It was confirmed that she sustained 8 blows and 8 wounds from a sharp object. The injuries on her arms and hands indicated that she had fought back until the end. It was also reported that the attacker had used the blade of the sharp object on her face and head, though no evidence of sexual assault was found. It was determined that the underpants seized from Mijel's house had traces of prostatic seminal fluid mixed with Estefania's blood. This would indicate that the teenager stimulated himself on her cousin's lifeless body. When the news emerged, the locals were outraged and attempted to burn down the family's home and take justice into their own hands. However, Estefania's relatives intervened to calm the situation. Following this incident, Mijel's family fled the area while the investigations continued to clarify what had happened. On Saturday, October 27th, the wake was held at Estefania's house, where she had grown up. Surrounded by the love of her family, the atmosphere was one of sadness, dismay, and anger. Neighbors, classmates, friends, and family members attended to demand justice. None of the Jovanovic relatives attended the all-night ceremony or the burial at the local cemetery, which was conducted according to some Jovanovic customs. From that moment on, Estefania's parents began to fight for Mijel to be judged and condemned. However, this was not easy for them, as Argentine law stipulates that no child under the age of 16 can be tried or imprisoned for a crime, regardless of its severity. Estefania's family contended that Mijel's relatives were likely accomplices. They argued that it would have been nearly impossible for a 15-year-old to commit the crime, hide the evidence, and dispose of the body within less than half an hour without assistance. They specifically pointed to Mijel's mother, known in the community as the Polish woman, and an uncle referred to as Osquita. However, neither of them was investigated. Despite Mijel's own admission of guilt and the various recordings and evidence collected, there was nothing Estefania's loved ones could do to alter the outcome. In November 2018, a court ruling declared Christian Alejandro Jovanovic, also known as Mijel, guilty of aggravated homicide with gender violence. He was sentenced to a psychiatric center in Mar del Plata, where he remained until he reached the age of majority. Mijel was isolated from other inmates to prevent confrontations, but rumors emerged that he had been assaulted on multiple occasions. This information, however, was not confirmed by the authorities. It appeared that these rumors were part of an attempt by Mijel to deflect responsibility and avoid being targeted by other inmates. In 2019, Mijel contacted Fiamma and denied having taken Estefania's life. He attempted to shift the blame onto an uncle. Estefania's grandmother later reported that Mijel had told Fiamma that one of his uncles had instructed him to take the girl away and wait for him outside. However, Estefania's grandmother had recordings from neighborhood cameras that proved the uncle had never left his house during the incident. As time passed, in October of that year, marking the first anniversary of Estefania's death, Her loved ones marched to the shed where Mile had deceitfully taken her. They then went to the place where her body had been found. The family criticized Mijel's mother and grandparents for not intervening. They recalled various psychological and psychiatric evaluations that had labeled Mijel as cold, calculating, and devoid of empathy, treating people as mere objects. It was believed that he was a psychopath who would likely reoffend. The family and various organizations pleaded with the authorities to confine Mijel indefinitely in a mental health institution, arguing that he posed a danger to society. Despite their clamor, a court decision was made to release him once he turned 18 on August 13, 2021. The decision included an order prohibiting Mijel from approaching Estefania's family after his release. It was later learned that he had moved with his mother to a neighborhood in Posadas, the capital city of Misiones, near the border with Paraguay, on October 25th of that same year. While Estefania's family continued to advocate for Mijel's reincarceration, the local community honored Estefania with an artistic tribute. The mural depicted the girl dressed as a gypsy, dancing flamenco, her favorite dance. Estefania's father Pablo attended the unveiling of the mural and gave an interview expressing his hope that the decision to release Mijel would be reconsidered. He emphasized that, although Mijel could not be tried again, he hoped he would be permanently committed to an institution where he could not pose a threat to others. Despite their efforts and appeals, Mijel's parents were not heard. However, Estefania's parents found some solace in knowing that the aggressor was legally barred from approaching them. However, their peace of mind was short-lived. A year after Mijel regained his freedom, he began making disturbing posts on social media. He opened multiple profiles where he shared unsettling images and videos of himself manipulating knives and performing various dances. Estefania's family quickly responded, publicly expressing their outrage at these posts, which they perceived as a mockery of her memory. In interviews with local media, they revealed that after discovering Mijel's videos, Fiamma reached out to him to protest and demand that he cease these activities. Mijel's response was dismissive, marked by mocking emojis. In one of the videos, a middle-aged woman can be seen sitting at a table in the background, seemingly eating while observing her son's actions. This woman was apparently his mother, who made evasive gestures whenever Mijel came too close to her. She appeared unfazed by her son's provocative behavior. Despite the family's complaints, the authorities took no action. Mijel's name resurfaced in the headlines in December 2022, 4 years after the original crime, when he was involved in a confusing incident that led to his arrest. At the time, the 19-year-old man attempted to assault a young woman, and during the altercation, one person was injured. He was reportedly released within 24 hours of his arrest and placed under police custody at his home. By then, neighbors had already reported him for walking the streets with bladed weapons and making constant threats. There were also allegations of him mistreating his own mother. In an exclusive television interview, Mijel broke his silence. He not only denied the residents' accusations but also addressed the events from 4 years earlier. He claimed that the allegations of carrying sharp objects and threatening locals were false, attributing them to misunderstandings fueled by social media coverage of his cousin's case. He admitted that he was not in his right mind at the time due to narcotic use. Mijel expressed regret, apologized to his family, and stated that he sought peace with God. He also apologized for the emotional distress he had caused Estefania's family with his videos. However, rather than alleviating the fears of Estefania's relatives, these incidents only heightened their concerns. In mid-July 2024, it was revealed that after 3 years of living in Misiones, Mijel had returned to Buenos Aires. Estefania's grandmother learned of this through social media. She mentioned that she even discovered Mijel had married a young woman from the gypsy community and was living with her without any restrictions. She expressed deep concern about his presence in the area and feared he might attack other family members. She reiterated that Mijel was a ticking time bomb and warned that it would not be long before he harmed someone else. At the time of the video publication, Christian's return to the community had not been officially confirmed. Estefania's family continued to urge for Mijel's permanent confinement in a psychiatric institution. They hoped the authorities would consider his earlier confession and the results of his psychological evaluations. They also announced their intention to advocate for a reduction in the minimum age for criminal responsibility. Pablo, who manages the Estefania Bonham page, seeks support for this initiative and updates the public on any progress or news related to the crime. Given the details of this case, do you agree with the decisions made and how the case was handled? Do you think the punishment imposed on this young man was too lenient, Or do you believe it was appropriate? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be sure to read them. Well, boys and girls, that wraps up today's video. It's a very shocking and deeply saddening case, a young girl who lost her life at only 9 years old, with so much potential and many years ahead of her. Meanwhile, the person responsible for this crime is now free. Although we cannot change the laws, we can advocate for our authorities to take action. The focus should not solely be on age, but on the severity of the crime committed. A person who, at 15 years old, could take the life of a 9-year-old girl poses a significant danger to society. Despite this, he is now free and has rebuilt his life, an opportunity that Estefania never had because he took hers. It's a very sad situation. If you found this video informative, please give it a like, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. I update 3 to 4 times a week, and subscribing ensures you'll receive a notification each time I upload a new video. See you next time with another case. Goodbye.